So, my mom and I got into a small argument just now, and I just wanted to sort of give my perspective on what we were talking about, because I think it may give me some insight into how I see the world and how that maybe could be changed, or whether I'm right in this instance and my mom isn't, or how parts of her internal philosophy might be correct, and how her views on how the world is can sort of coexist with mine. So essentially we've been having this consistent fight, pretty much. Basically, the job that I have, I don't know how much I'm getting paid for it. I know that may sound weird, but essentially the way I got the job was pretty much through connections, and so I got the job quite suddenly, and with not much paperwork. Not that it wasn't much paperwork, but in the sense that there really wasn't many hoops to jump through. It was all just very more like, because the organization already knew who I was through my connections, they were much more willing to hire me, essentially. And because of that, I didn't really go through the regular job search process or interview process. And because of that, I never really knew how much the job paid. And I never thought to bring it up until my mom brought it up, and at that point I found it kind of awkward to ask about how much I was getting paid so many months after I had already accepted the job offer. And had done all the paperwork, and we sort of had passed the discussion phase about getting the job. And I sort of didn't consider my ignorance of what I was getting paid a big priority in the things that I needed to know about, or the things that I needed to be concerned about. And so I just didn't ask, and I actually never really thought about it at all until my mom brought it up. And it it just wasn't really an important thing that I was thinking about. But my mom disagrees a lot, and she really keeps bringing it up, essentially, as a big problem, that I don't know how much I'm getting paid. A big enough problem to make a big hubbub about it, essentially, every time it comes up where she thinks about it. kind of just don't want to ask anymore because it's just kind of awkward, and also I'll get into other reasons later, but my mom, she just thinks I think it's like insignificant, and that's why I shouldn't ask, and she thinks it's insignificant as well, and that's why I should ask. Like, it's not a question that I should be worried about asking, is essentially her take, and it's a question that anyone who's working should know, and that's why I should ask it. And I mean, I do agree with her, and I really wish I could ask it. But for me, it just feels so painfully like something that I shouldn't do for some reason. And I think that leads, with that context, that leads pretty well into a sort of explanation of like the kind of philosophies behind it. And so, yeah, essentially the way my mom looks at the world versus the way I look at the world. And let me quickly so essentially my mom thinks this is part of like a pattern of behavior, essentially, which is me essentially allowing other people to quote unquote take advantage of me. And and as an example, she brings up a incident in 8th grade where I was I was enrolled into a class that I had already taken the previous year, and I didn't want to get out of that class, essentially, simply because I was so I was just I don't know why I didn't want to ask the front office to like if whether I could change the classes. I think I was just afraid. And I'll provide an additional example. In 8th grade, I wanted to transfer to a different school, so I had to ask all of my teachers for recommendation letters in order to essentially like be able to leave the school to go to another school. And I didn't want to ask because trying to get into a different school, transferring out of a school which has a high school, a dedicated high school, to go to another high school instead, to me felt kind of like weird, because like, I don't know, it kind of feels like you have loyalty to the school, and almost like bringing that up is kind of like you're betraying the school, or like you don't like the school because you're leaving, or like, yeah, this is like the best school, why are you like leaving to go to a worse school, stuff like that. in my head. And I do remember like one teacher telling me that essentially like, why are you leaving? I kind of like blocked that out, but I remember it was kind of awkward, that one-on-one conversation. And also the front office was extremely unhelpful in getting me this documents. As you know, admissions officers have to give the documents from their school to the other school when you're applying to applying in general. That goes for like college, and I think it's the same for middle to high school, at least for the high school that I went to. And they were just not helpful at all. And yeah, I don't think they were particularly interested in helping me once they found out that I was going to another school. I don't have good memories from that time. And whether I should have been more forceful, more loud about the things that I wanted to do, or the things that I needed. I think I definitely do see that I should have brought things up when they should have been brought up. When issues were clearly there, I should have definitely spoke up. But I think it also sets this sort of up this sort of mindset that I have. Of like a fundamental distrust of other people, which is ironic, given that I think my mom almost, even though me and her, is it me and her or she and I? Even though she and I disagree on like the courses of action for a lot of different things. So essentially how my mom operates is she's very forceful with what she wants. She's very careful, cautious, inherently sort of self-interested in the things that she needs and wants for her and her family, and that can maybe lead to not the best interactions with the people around her. Yeah. And I, on the opposite end, am very prone to people pleasing, I think, and really caving under the pressure of the people around me. And I think what's ironic is that even though one could say that my mom's methods indicate a big your distrust of other people. I actually don't think that's true. I think it indicates almost a certain level of actual trust, a belief that all people are kind of the same. And that people, something she says, that no one will look out for you except for you, and because everyone else is only looking out for themselves. And I think my treatment of other people actually displays a strong distrust of the people around me. Even though I may be nicer, it is because I am uneasy of your emotions and your actions and what you want, because I'm afraid that our interests might, or the things that we want might not align or might even clash, and the thing that I hate a lot is conflict. And in my personal opinion, I think that my mom said that I believe that all people are good. And I agree, but I think there's more nuance than that. I think that I think that I think all people are good, but sometimes that goodness lies on the tipping point. You know, being civil lies on the tipping point of the darkness and rage and violence that a lot of humans have, as you can see just going outside or reading or looking around you. Many examples of the brutality of human nature exist, and I'm afraid of my actions. Even something as simple as asking how much I'm getting paid may tip that scale into, from good and civil, into that darkness. And I know that's a bad thing to say if you really trust the people you're working for. Asking such a simple question, and assuming that it will tip them over the edge is kind of distrustful and doesn't speak well to your opinions of those people. And to that, that's what my mom said, I would say it's not that I don't think you're a good person. It's that as a human, you are good, but you are also unpredictable. And I don't want to do anything at all that could potentially tip you over the edge that I don't need to do. Right? And it's that concept of being on the edge. And for some humans, for some people, that edge is, they might be very far from it. Some people may be on like a great plateau with no edge in sight, and they're simply just content and happy all the time. And some people, like, let's say, I don't know, a psychopath, that's a disease. Let's say a serial killer, or, I don't know, just anyone you think who is automatically an inherently bad person. I don't think they're inherently bad. I just think that something happened that put them on that tipping point, and bringing them back from the edge or off of the edge. Maybe some people are too far gone, but I think that, you walk that fine line. Some people walk that fine line, and you can still bring them back. And the problem is, in this world, you can't really tell who is an axe wielding. No, not. You can probably tell that, but you can't really tell who is on that edge and who isn't. I mean, sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't. And to bring it to a more, applicable situation, sometimes you can't tell what phrase, what statement will cause someone who is a good person, who I truly believe is a good person, to hold a slight, to maybe have a slight distaste for you, like the slightest distaste, or I don't know. Maybe I definitely am too conscious and of what other people think about me. But I don't know. This is a lot of my videos. No one will watch them till this point. I don't think anyone has watched a single video of mine for more than 3 minutes. Which is completely fine by me. It's just that sometimes, opinions the things that I just said, I don't really care if they're seen or heard by anybody. But for people who are future, future listeners, it's important to have context on what you're listening to, but often that context gets buried within everything else. Maybe I was thinking about this earlier, maybe I have to make a separate video, because, when you're reading any book or document, you have to have some sort of context before jumping in. Or usually you have context before jumping in that educates you on the way in which you should read, or the things you should be looking for. Essentially what I'm trying to say, I forgot actually. Oh, I remember. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that my videos are not meant to be consumed by people who want quick and fast. My videos are slow, not on purpose, but I think they portray the real speed in which I think. The real speed in which someone who is actually thinking about what they're trying to, not what they're trying to say, but what their mind is saying, and interpret it into words. A person who's very intentional about intentions. I think the pace is simply dictated by that as a necessity. And the lack of editing and polish is more of a convenience in order to limit the amount of clutter from pure thought to whoever listens. Essentially, I wanted to make the closest thing to being able to beam your thoughts into somebody's head as possible. And that may not make for the best content. That is fine with me.